when I look at people, I can see they have the basic features of a face, so eyes, a nose, and a mouth. But when it comes to more distinct features, such as where the eyes are on the face or the shape of the eyebrows, I don't see them properly or remember them. But when people have a distinct feature, such as, for example, a mole that's very visible or a scar, then I will be able to recognize those people a lot easier.
When she was little, she wouldn't recognize people she'd met previously, and she really identified people by what they were wearing. So she was very much aware, which clothes people had on, and she was very much able to describe those to me, but she couldn't tell me what the person looked like.
Met Rebecca for the first time about 6 months ago at her younger brother's birthday party. So her brother and my son are friends in the same class at school. And Rebecca was sitting at a table with her art projects and her portfolio. And I was really interested and intrigued because it was just such a high quality, and I could tell she was really passionate about it. We had a great conversation, probably for about an hour. Um, I didn't realize I was going to be working at school shortly thereafter, or that I would be working with Rebecca specifically. And I recall during our first meeting, we sat down and I said, "Oh, I remember I met you. We had a great conversation." She said, "No, I don't remember that at all."
One of the experiences that I've had recently was that me and some friends, we went to Brussels because we were going to go to an art exhibition, and several, in fact. That's why we had to run through the city. And we were all walking, and for a split moment, I had to look at my phone because I need to see something. I had a text or something like that. I can't quite remember. And when I looked up, they were gone. And so even though I looked around, I couldn't see them anywhere. So I assumed they must have gone into some place. And so I spent like an hour or so trying to figure out where exactly they were at because I couldn't see them like anywhere, no matter how hard I looked. But it turns out they weren't actually in the store. They were only like a bit away on the street, but not close. Like I couldn't recognize them at all, even though they were there. So yeah, those experiences I have quite often that happen to me.
She had a friend who had a pink sweater, and she would identify that friend as having the pink sweater, but the child outgrew it and it was given to another child in her class. And she was very confused that, the pink sweater didn't belong to the right person anymore. And so it was very upsetting for her that this had happened. And she really was, it was very troubling to her that she couldn't identify the right person anymore.
There are various ways in which I can recognize people. The one I use the most is basically clothing, because the way people dress is very specific to their personality. For example, I have this one friend who has a very bubbly, energetic personality, and they dress that way as well. So, very bright colors, very intense fashion choices, which means that in a crowd of people, I can instantly pick out this person. Then again, that backfires when, for example, someone lends someone else a sweater, or they just bought a whole new set of clothes and they decide to wear all parts of that outfit in one day. It's really hard for me to recognize who that actually is. Another way of recognizing people is the mannerisms. So, for example, the way they walk, the way they walk is very different from person to person. The way their hand gestures are, the way they move their head is all very significant to to different people. So that's what I mainly base it on.
As she's gotten older, she's gotten better at dealing with the problem. And so she takes a little bit more time to think about who the person may be if she doesn't recognize the clothes, or she may find other tricks to get beyond it. I think in general, as she's gotten older, she's learned to cope with it better. And the better examples are from when she was little.
Now that Rebecca and I have talked about her face blindness in detail, she said, "Do you remember that first interaction we had? When you told me you knew me?" She said, "I really didn't know who you were. And in fact, I didn't know you for about our first 6 sessions. Once I finally figured out what shoes you wore and what hairstyles you had and the type of clothes you wore," she said, "then I could recognize you, and we could really, move forward with our mentoring." She picks up on smaller details than the average person would. I've worked with her quite a bit on some of her art projects and art essays, and the detail that she notices that often gets overlooked by the average person on a day-to-day basis is pretty remarkable. So I think it's actually given her a benefit in some ways in terms of how she views the world.
when I look at faces to draw them, they do not they're not faces for me. They're like just a structure of lines, and I draw the lines, copy them down, I paint the lines, but I'm not actually directly painting two eyes and a nose and looking at how high that cheekbone is and stuff like that. For me, it's literally just as easy as or difficult as drawing an object or anything else. So I don't really see them as faces. But if I can choose to avoid drawing faces, I rather don't because it tends to take a bit more time than usual.